15 July 2007. High above the freezing night sky of Turkey's Taurus Mountains, an aging Ilyushin Il-76, bearing North Korean markings, glided silently at 33,000 feet. The Russian crew had no idea that in the pitch-black cargo hold, behind them sealed containers, carried the deadliest payload the Middle East had ever come within hours of receiving a complete set of nuclear triggers, the final gift that would turn the Al-Kibar reactor in Deir ez-Zor into Syria's first bomb aimed straight at Tel Aviv. Had this flight landed on schedule, in just a few months, the entire strategic map of the region would have been rewritten forever. But at that exact moment, somewhere on the ground below, a handful of men with no rank insignia and no country on their lapels quietly flipped the switch on a portable transmitter. They carried no guns, no parachutes, only voices, and a plan so insane no one dared believe it could work. In the next 11 minutes, that death-laden aircraft would be hijacked in midair without a single soul on board realizing it. The pilot would voluntarily change course, voluntarily land at NATO's Incirlik Air Base, voluntarily open the cargo doors, and even profusely thank the Turkish air traffic control he had been talking to for the past 40 minutes. Not a single shot fired. Not a single official statement. Syria, North Korea, Turkey, Israel, and even the United States all agreed to deny this story ever existed. This is the operation that has no name in any archive, only whispered among retired Mossad officers on the darkest of nights, the forced landing operation. And today, only here on Ghosts of Strategy, we will take you second by second, frequency by frequency, heartbeat by heartbeat, of the ghosts who silently prevented the Middle East from stepping into the nuclear age. A catastrophe the world never even knew it had just been saved from. Don't look away from the screen, because in the minutes ahead, you will understand that the true power of modern intelligence lies not in explosions, but in absolute silence. Welcome to Ghosts of Strategy. Stay until the very last second. You won't believe what you're about to witness. In the middle of the barren Deir ez-Zor, hundreds of kilometers from any settlement, a perfectly square building was rising. Flat roof, cylindrical cooling stack, massive underground water pipes, and above all, not a single civilian power line connected to it. An Israeli nuclear engineer needed only 80 seconds to whisper Yongbyon. This is an almost exact replica of North Korea's Yongbyon reactor. Every heart in the room stopped, because everyone instantly grasped one simple, terrifying truth. Syria had no uranium. Syria had no world-class nuclear scientists. But if they had a reactor plus nuclear triggers, all they needed was a few hundred kilograms of black market uranium to build 3 crude atomic bombs in under a year. And from Deir ez-Zor to Tel Aviv is only a 7-minute flight for an upgraded Scud. January 2007. Mossad threw everything it had. Night satellite photos showed North Korean military-marked trucks entering the construction site. Shipment from Damascus, a group of foreign engineers under state-level protection housed in a restricted zone speaking Korean. An extremely high-level source inside the Syrian government even leaked a photo North Korean Major General Choe Ryong-hae grinning next to the director of Syria's nuclear program, Ibrahim Othman. Worse still, financial intelligence confirmed Damascus had transferred $2 billion in cash, literally suitcases, stuffed with banknotes, through banks in Macau and Dubai to Pyongyang. In return, North Korea wasn't just selling the reactor, They promised to deliver the complete package, ultra-fast Krytron triggers and weapon-grade plutonium enrichment components. By May 2007, Mossad analysts drew the nightmare timeline. July Al-Kibar reaches criticality. September-October final shipment containing the nuclear triggers arrives. Late 2007 or early 2008, Syria could conduct its first nuclear test in the eastern desert. Prime Minister Ehud Olmert signed a single line in red ink on the report. This will not be allowed to happen, at any cost. That was when Mossad understood there was no choice but to strike before Syria's first bomb rolled off the assembly line. But how when the reactor sat deep inside enemy territory protected by Russian air defenses and any airstrike risked igniting total war? The answer lay in a cargo flight scheduled to depart Pyongyang in July 2007. And that was when the craziest plan in Mossad history was born: hijack an aircraft full of nuclear weapons, using nothing but voices. June 2007, a windowless room in Herzliya reeked of cigarettes and burnt coffee. On the table, hundreds of satellite signal printouts, charter flight schedules, Macau transfer receipts, and one blurry mobile phone photo from an inside source. 3 gray aluminum containers, exactly 3.2 meters long, wrapped in yellow tape with Korean characters being lifted by crane onto an old Il-76 at Pyongyang's Sunan airport. Under the neon lights, a young Mossad engineer pointed to tiny lettering on the label Project 141, Krytron switching units, and BBU-29 initiators. Translation: the beating heart of any nuclear bomb. Without them, Al-Kibar would forever remain a useless pile of concrete. Mossad knew every gram. 48 ultra-fast Krytron switching units items the U.S. banned so tightly that even one is blacklisted. 12 spherical beryllium neutron initiators, material used only to start a chain reaction. And the worst 4 custom bridge wire detonators built to North Korean design for 6.5 kilo plutonium warheads, exactly the size Al-Kibar was about to produce. The route was a cat-and-mouse game: Pyongyang, refuel in Urumqi, northwest China, where checks are practically visual, over Kazakhstan, across the Caspian, enter Turkey, drop down to Syria via the Irbil corridor, avoiding all official NATO radars. 28 hours total flight time, 4 refueling stops, and not one airport along the way willing to open the containers. Mossad considered shooting it down. 2 F-15Is were already on full alert at Hatsurian pilots sleeping beside their jets. But one piece of wreckage falling on a Turkish village in the Fifth Middle East War would erupt instantly. Parachute commando raid on Latakia impossible. The plane would land on the night of 16/7 and the cargo would be whisked into the desert immediately. In the final meeting on 10 July, the head of Syria operations slammed the table. We cannot let the cargo reach Syria. But we also cannot let the world know we stopped it. A young officer raised his hand. Then let's make sure the plane never realizes it was stopped. 5 seconds of silence. Then everyone understood they would turn the pilot himself into an unwitting accomplice of Mossad. 12th of July, 2007, in an abandoned warehouse near Adana, Turkey, 8 Mossad operatives opened a wooden crate labeled Industrial Water Filtration Equipment. Inside was no filter. It was a custom-built mobile ATC transmitter made by Elbit 5 kilo, capable of overpowering every official VHF frequency within a 300 kilometer radius. Accompanying it were 2 Turkish Jewish actors whose Ankara accents were so perfect even their own mothers wouldn't notice the difference. Chosen forced landing site Incirlik, the largest U.S. NATO base in Turkey. Perfect reasons. Only 90 kilometers from the Syrian border. An emergency diversion due to conflict sounded completely plausible. 5,000 American troops. Damascus would never dare a military response. Israel-Turkey relations were ice cold at the time. Ankara would never admit cooperating with Mossad. The script was rehearsed 47 times in 72 hours. 21 of 42 local aircraft enters false coverage zone. Ankara control voice issues emergency order in English plus backup Turkish. Pilot is handed off to Incirlik Tower, also run by Mossad, from a van 8 kilometers from the runway. Landing, tow to remote apron. 4-hour security inspection, swap cargo, release. Biggest risk pilot suspects something and calls international emergency frequency 121.5 MHz guard. Solution Mossad transmitter would blast white noise across guard for the critical 15 minutes. No distress call would ever be heard. Night of the 14th. July, the team leader received the final message from Tel Aviv approved. 0 footprint. Good luck. They turned off the lights, locked the warehouse, and waited for the Il-76 to appear on radar. What follows are the most nerve-wracking minutes in modern Mossad history when a team of just 8 people and 1 microphone held the fate of the entire Middle East in their hands. 15 July 2007, 21:38 Turkish time. The Il-76 had just crossed the Taurus Mountains. The Russian pilot was lighting his last cigarette before entering Syrian airspace when suddenly a deep male voice with perfect Ankara accent came through his headset. Air Cargo 919. This is Ankara, military control on emergency frequency. Confirm receipt. The pilot jumped and answered instantly. Ankara 919, loud and clear, 5x5. 918, intelligence just reported high-level military activity along the Syrian border. Entire southern airspace closed indefinitely. Divert immediately to Incirlik runway 05, QNH 1011. Acknowledge. 4 seconds of silence and eternity for the Mossad team inside the van. The pilot asked Ankara, can we route around via Lebanon -919? Lebanon also closed. Incirlik is the only option within 400 nautical miles. We have already notified your company. Land immediately. This is a military order. The Russian pilot glanced at the fuel gauge, 42% enough to circle for 1 more hour and then go dry. He sighed, Roger, diverting to Incirlik. 21:47, handed off to Incirlik Tower. Actually a female Mossad officer sitting in a container 7 kilometers from the runway. Sweet professional voice. 918 wind 050 at 6 knots, runway dry approach, lights at full intensity. You are the first diverted flight tonight. We have a reserved parking spot ready. 21:59. Wheels touch down at Incirlik. The pilot even smiled over the radio. Thank you, Incirlik. You guys are fast. At that moment, he had no idea his aircraft had just voluntarily landed exactly where Mossad wanted it, without a single shot, without a single suspicion. T-15. Incirlik. The Il-76 was towed to the darkest corner of the apron 400 meters from the main lights right next to the fence, patrolled by U.S. troops. The Russian crew was invited to the VIP lounge, actually a soundproof container with Turkish coffee and pastries, door softly locked from the outside. 22:27. A 6-man team wearing Turkish Customs police uniforms. Mossad approached silently. Using red flashlights, they cut the seals with ceramic metal-free blades and opened the first container. The air inside was ice cold from the liquid nitrogen cooling system. The gray aluminum crates appeared bearing Korean lettering, Gomildo, Gyeonggi, Jangsi, Chuigub, Jui high-density electrical equipment, handle with extreme care. They lifted the lid. Flashlight beams revealed 48 vacuum tubes containing krytrons, each wrapped in anti-shock wool. 12 mirror-polished beryllium spheres, 1.8 kilos each, enough to initiate 12 bombs. Finally, 4 bridge wire detonators in anti-magnetic boxes, stamped by North Korea's Institute 101 manufacture date 03/07/2007, brand new. In just 42 seconds, the team leader whispered into his encrypted earpiece, "Jackpot. 100% authentic. Begin replacement." They already had the fake components ready, manufactured at Raphael's Haifa plant. Identical weight, forged serial numbers, identical surface temperature. Only one difference: inside were lead blocks and self-destructing microcircuits. The swap took place in total silence, only the sound of tape and breathing. 02:11 a.m. Last container resealed, traces erased. Total time, 3 hours, 44 minutes. Not one American soldier 50 meters away noticed a thing. The Russian pilot was still dozing on the sofa with pastry crumbs on his lip. 04:05 a.m. 16 July 2007, Incirlik. The sky was just turning pink when a ground handler knocked "Gentleman paperwork. Complete weather clear. You're free to depart." The bleary-eyed Russian pilot yawned. "That was fast. I thought we'd be stuck here all day." He even shook hands and thanked the Turkish colleagues for their professionalism. No one told him the person whose hand he shook had photographed his passport 17 minutes earlier and sent it to Tel Aviv. For 27, the Il-76 taxied out, engines roaring. The voice of Incirlik Tower came one last time, warm as an old friend. 9:18, wind calm, runway clear. Safe flight and see you next time. The pilot laughed. "Thanks, guys. Next round of Russian vodka is on me." 04:34. The aircraft vanished southbound. 3 hours later, it landed at Syria's Tias military airfield, exactly on the original schedule. The containers were met at the end of the runway by army trucks and driven straight to Deir ez-Zor under Special Forces escort. No one suspected a thing. Only at the end of October 2007, when Syrian engineers tried to test the first trigger, did they discover the krytrons wouldn't fire. The beryllium was ordinary alloy. The entire shipment was a forgery so perfect that even North Korean experts later admitted impossible to tell without unsoldering every joint. By then, it was far too late to reorder, because just days later, on the night of 5 to 6 September 2007, 12 Israeli F-15As and F-16As erased Al-Kibar from existence in Operation Orchard, leaving not a single intact brick. 6 September 2007, when Al-Kibar was a 30-meter crater, the world heard only one short sentence from Damascus. Israel bombed an empty agricultural warehouse. North Korea, total silence. Turkey, no emergency landing occurred at Incirlik on 15/7, United States. We do not comment on intelligence operations. Israel smiled, neither confirmed nor denied. The truth: 5 governments, 5 intelligence agencies, thousands of the people who knew, yet not one official document exists. The only report is a thin black folder, no number, no title, locked in the Mossad director's safe. Inside, a single line: Operation Silent Landing, 0 footprint achieved. The Russian pilot, until the end of his days, told friends, It was the weirdest flight of my career. The Turks were so friendly, they even gave us pastries. He never knew he had carried Syria's first nuclear bomb, and also its last. In 2018, a retired Mossad general confirmed for the first time at a closed conference in Herzliya, "We didn't just steal their components, we stole their time." By the time they realized, the reactor was already ashes. And that is the pinnacle of modern intelligence. No explosions, no victory declarations, only unanimous silence from every side. You think the story ended on 6 September 2007, when Al-Kabar turned to smoke numb. It had only just begun. The fake triggers Mossad swapped in 2007 weren't merely useless. They contained a tiny dormant chip planted by Unit 8200. That chip stayed silent for 9 years. Until the night of 12 April 2018, when Syrian engineers, still unwilling to abandon the nuclear dream, tried to reassemble the old shipment for reverse engineering. The chip woke up and sent a 0.8-second burst to the OFEC-11 satellite. 20 minutes later, 8 silent F-35 Hyaders appeared over Damascus and turned another secret warehouse into rubble. Not one Syrian SAM battery managed to switch on its radar. Not one official statement was ever released. The old Il-76 still flies somewhere in Africa. Under new registration, the Russian pilot is retired in Crimea, and the Mossad agents from that night are now grandfathers. But the silent landing technology never retired. It has been upgraded, miniaturized, encrypted, and lives inside hundreds of civilian vans scattered across the globe, waiting for the day it is needed again. In 2025, when you hear that some mysterious cargo flight had to make an emergency landing due to technical issues somewhere between Iran, Pakistan, or the Korean Peninsula, remember the night of 15 July 2007. History might be repeating itself, only this time you will never be told. Stop for 1 second and look at your phone screen right now. You are watching this video through satellites, dozens of relays, millions of radio frequencies floating above our heads every second. Ever wondered if in 2007 all it took was one van and one voice to steal a nuclear bomb in mid-flight? What would it take in 2025 to steal an entire ballistic missile program? They don't need tanks. They don't need aircraft carriers. They only need you to believe that air traffic control is the voice talking to you. Today, technology has advanced another 18 years. AI can clone any voice from just 3 seconds of audio. A 20-inch suitcase-sized SDR transmitter can blanket all VHF/UHF bands across a 500-kilometer radius. LEO satellites can broadcast fake GPS, making a pilot think he's 300 kilometers off course. And most importantly, 99% of the world's pilots still trust the voice in their headset completely. In 2024, a cargo flight from Pyongyang to Tehran had to make an emergency landing at an airport no one expected. Officially, technical failure. Unofficially, not a single press line ever mentioned what was in the hold. Ghosts of strategy won't tell you where it was because we're still alive. But we leave you with one final question before we turn out the lights. If tomorrow an aircraft carrying something far worse than nuclear triggers flies over your head, and the voice in the headset tells the pilot, "Divert, immediately, terrorists on board," do you think he would hesitate? Thank you for staying until the very last second of this story. We don't say, "See you next time." We only say, "Keep notifications on," because one day the ghost might whisper straight into your ear. Lights out. Silence is golden.